I never thought the moment I lost my son would also be the moment I lost my place in the family. The phone call was short, but the impact was profound. "Mom, I'm sorry, Daniel's gone." I stood there, frozen, the words echoing in my mind as if they didn't belong to my reality. But the worst part came moments later. I dialed Emily's number, expecting at least a semblance of grief, a trace of compassion. But when she picked up, her first words were, "I'm busy with my boss. I can't talk right now." It felt like a slap across the face. My son had just passed away, and my daughter-in-law, the woman I had trusted to care for him, couldn't even spare a moment to acknowledge his death. I couldn't understand it. How could someone be so cold? It wasn't just the words. It was the complete lack of empathy, the complete disregard for everything I had just gone through. There I was, holding the phone, feeling the weight of a world shattering, while Emily was busy with her career. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead, I just hung up. The silence on the other end of the line was more deafening than anything she could have said. It was then I knew. Things were never going to be the same. I thought about all the years I had supported her, welcomed her into our family, and now this. I wasn't just mourning my son. I was mourning the family I thought I knew, the family that had turned its back on me in the most unimaginable way. Emily's coldness was the first sign, the first hint that something deeper was at play, but I couldn't yet see the full picture. Not then, at least. I felt the sting of betrayal in every corner of the house that night, every shadow of memory that lingered. But little did I know, this was just the beginning. I had no idea that what was about to come would shake me to my core even further. I thought I had lost everything with Daniel's passing, but I hadn't yet lost the most important thing, my dignity. And I would fight for that. The days that followed were a blur. The house felt hollow, as if the walls themselves were mourning the absence of my son. His laughter, his voice, the little things he used to say gone. And with him, a part of me was lost too. I sat in his room one evening, just staring at the chair by his desk. It was a chair he'd sat in since he was a boy, and now it was just an empty space. The silence weighed heavily on me, but there was something else creeping in, something far worse than grief. It was the realization that I was alone, truly alone. Not just in the house, but in this family. Emily, my daughter-in-law, hadn't called once since that fateful conversation. She didn't even ask if I needed anything. No flowers, no card. It was as if Daniel had never existed for her at all. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. How could someone be so callous? How could she act as though everything was normal, while my world was shattering? I tried to push these thoughts aside, thinking maybe she was just grieving in her own way, or maybe she was just busy. But as the days turned into weeks, I started to notice the subtle signs that something was off. At family gatherings, she would barely acknowledge me. When she did speak to me, her words felt forced, like she was doing it out of obligation rather than genuine concern. It stung. It hurt in ways I couldn't quite explain. I had always tried to be there for Emily. I had helped her when she needed it, celebrated her successes, supported her through tough times. And this indifference, was how she repaid me? I remembered the last time we had sat together at a family dinner, not long before Daniel passed. It was a normal evening, or so I thought. Emily had smiled at me then, but now I couldn't help but wonder if that smile had been nothing more than a mask. She had said all the right things, acted all the right ways, but I didn't feel the warmth. I didn't feel like family. I felt like I was just another person she had to tolerate. The more I thought about it, the more everything seemed to fall into place. Emily had always been distant, but I had never noticed how deep that distance ran. She didn't care about Daniel. She didn't care about me. She cared about what we could give her, what she could get from us. The more I replayed it in my mind, the clearer it became. I wasn't just a mother-in-law to her. I was a source of convenience. I wasn't a part of the family. I was an obstacle to her plans. And Daniel, he had never seen it. He had always believed the best in people, in his wife, and maybe that's what made it even harder. The fact that he had never seen what was happening, the subtle manipulation, the coldness. If only he had known. If only he had lived long enough to see the truth. I closed my eyes and thought of him, his smile, his laugh, his voice. The pain of losing him was already unbearable, but now there was another kind of pain creeping in. The pain of betrayal. The pain of realizing that, in the end, Emily had been playing a game all along. A game I was only beginning to understand. I didn't want to accept it, but the truth was clear. I had been blind. And now, I had to find a way to face it, to live with it, to stand up for myself. Because if I didn't, no one else would. The days continued to pass, and the weight of my growing suspicions began to feel unbearable. I kept looking for signs, little things that might explain Emily's behavior, but every time I searched, I found nothing that made sense. I decided to pay closer attention, thinking I might finally catch her in the act, or at least catch a glimpse of the truth. One afternoon, I was going through some old family photos in the living room, trying to hold on to memories that felt increasingly distant. As I flipped through the pages of the photo album, I found a picture of Daniel and Emily from their honeymoon. They looked so happy, so in love. It should have made me smile, but instead, it made my stomach twist. I hadn't seen that genuine spark in Emily's eyes in a long time. I thought about that honeymoon picture for days. How long had things been like this? Was she pretending all along, even from the very beginning? I couldn't stop wondering if Emily had always felt like this, like I was just someone she had to tolerate, someone standing in her way. I decided to take a step I'd been avoiding for weeks. I needed to find out what was really going on, no matter how much it hurt. I couldn't keep living like this, uncertain of what the truth was. I started by talking to people outside the family, just to see if anyone had noticed anything unusual about Emily. I reached out to a few old friends of Daniel who had known us both for years. The conversations were polite, but I could tell they were all holding something back. No one said anything outright, but the way they avoided certain topics told me everything. The more I asked, the more I realized that I wasn't the only one who felt like something was wrong. One afternoon, I decided to confront Emily directly. She had been avoiding me for weeks, and every time I tried to call her, she would either make excuses or not answer at all. That evening, I decided to drop by her house. It was a bold move, but I couldn't wait any longer. I arrived unannounced and rang the doorbell, my heart racing. When Emily answered, her face immediately fell. She wasn't expecting me, and I could tell she was caught off guard. "What's going on, Emily?" I asked, my voice steady but filled with unspoken questions. She hesitated for a moment before stepping aside, letting me into the house. "I don't know what you mean," she said, avoiding eye contact. "Don't play games with me," I replied, stepping into the living room. "I've been trying to reach you, and I need answers. You've been distant, cold even. I need to know what's going on. What is it that you want?" She stood there for a moment, clearly trying to figure out how to respond. Finally, she let out a long sigh. "I don't want anything from you," she said, her tone harsh. "I'm just tired of pretending. I never wanted this life. I never wanted any of this." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't know how to respond at first. I had spent so many years thinking that Emily was just a part of the family, but now it felt like she was a stranger, someone I didn't even recognize. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, barely able to keep my voice from trembling. Emily looked at me for a moment, her eyes finally meeting mine. "I don't care about your family, Barbara," she said, her words cutting like ice. "I married Daniel because it was the best thing to do at the time. I needed security, and he provided it. I didn't care about him like you think I did. I didn't care about you either." The truth of her words hit me harder than I ever imagined. She had never been the person I thought she was. All these years, I had treated her like family, welcomed her into our lives, and this is what I got in return? I stood there in stunned silence, struggling to process the full weight of her confession. Everything I thought I knew about my son's marriage, everything I had believed about Emily, was a lie. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily shrugged, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "What was the point? I knew you wouldn't believe me, and honestly, I didn't care enough to explain. But now that Daniel is gone, it's all mine for the taking. I can finally live the life I've always wanted." Her words were a cold slap, a final realization that everything I had given to her, everything I had trusted her with, meant nothing to her. The betrayal ran deeper than I had ever imagined. It wasn't just about money or inheritance or anything material. It was about the complete disregard for the love and respect that should have existed between us. And in that moment, I knew something had to change. I couldn't let Emily continue to manipulate me, to push me aside as though I didn't matter. No more. I had to fight back. I had to reclaim my place in this family. The days after that conversation with Emily were filled with a quiet, gnawing determination. I couldn't shake off the words she had said to me, each one like a dagger twisting in my chest. She had laid bare everything I had been too blind to see, Everything I had trusted her with, shattered in one cold, heartless moment. The picture that had once been so clear now seemed like a distorted image, a lie I had lived in for far too long. My son, Daniel, had loved her. He had trusted her. But now, I realized, all that love had been nothing but a means to an end for her. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't just sit back and allow her to take everything. My son's memory, his legacy, and the place I had in this family. For the first time in years, I felt something other than sorrow. I felt anger. I had spent so much time caring for everyone else, sacrificing for them. And yet here I was, abandoned, treated like I was nothing more than an inconvenience. I walked around the house, my eyes catching glimpses of memories with Daniel that now seemed bittersweet. The house felt emptier than ever, and yet, as I looked at everything we had built together, I knew I couldn't let Emily destroy it all. It wasn't just about the money, or the house, or the things we had. It was about respect. It was about my place in this family, and I wasn't going to let her take that from me. I began making calls, gathering information, seeking advice. I reached out to a lawyer I had known for years, someone Daniel had trusted. I needed to know what my options were. I wasn't going to let Emily manipulate me any longer. I had a right to what Daniel had left, and I was determined to make sure his wishes were honored. The more I dug, the more I realized just how far Emily had gone to control everything. She had convinced Daniel to change his will just months before his death, and she had made sure that I would be left with nothing. But I wasn't going to give up without a fight. I spent the next few days preparing for the confrontation that was coming. I couldn't let Emily keep walking all over me. I had to stand up for myself, for my son, and for the family Daniel had always wanted. I knew Emily would try to twist the truth, to manipulate the situation to her advantage. But this time, I wouldn't let her. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative anymore. I started organizing my thoughts, preparing myself to speak my truth. When the day finally came, I wasn't nervous. I was resolute. I had a plan. I walked into Emily's house with my head held high, ready to face her. She was sitting on the couch, her posture stiff, her eyes wary when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice cold. "I'm here to talk about Daniel," I replied, my voice calm but firm. "I know what you've been doing, and I won't stand by while you take everything from me. Daniel didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve to be lied to, and neither did I. I want what's rightfully mine, and I'm not leaving until I get it." Her eyes narrowed, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in her. It was subtle, but it was there. She knew I was no longer the quiet, compliant woman she could easily push aside. I was done being manipulated. "You don't get it, do you?" she said, her voice a little shaky now. "This was always mine. Daniel was never going to leave you anything. You're just a burden." The words stung, but I stood tall, refusing to let her see the pain. "I may be a burden to you, but I'm Daniel's mother, and I'm not going anywhere. I have the law on my side, and you're not going to get away with this. Not this time." Emily's face twisted into an expression of rage. She stood up, her hands clenched at her sides. "You think you can just come in here and take what's mine?" she hissed. "I'll make sure you regret this." "You've already made me regret a lot of things," I said, my voice steady. "But this time, you won't win." She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. "I'm taking you to court, Emily. I'm not leaving without what's mine, and I'm not going to let you steal from me any longer." Her face went pale at the mention of legal action, and for the first time, I saw a hint of doubt in her eyes. She knew she had pushed too far. She had underestimated me, thinking I would just roll over and accept her manipulation. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Not anymore. It had been a week since I had confronted Emily, and the weight of what I had done still hung heavy in the air. I had never been the type of person to raise my voice or stand my ground in situations like this, but I knew I had no other choice. I had to fight for what was mine, what Daniel had left behind. Every day felt like a battle, but I was determined to win. I spent the next few days gathering everything I could. I reached out to my lawyer, determined to make sure that Daniel's will was honored, and I started organizing my thoughts, my emotions, my evidence. The more I dug, the more I realized just how deep Emily's manipulation had run. She had been playing a game for years, quietly working to push me aside, to erase me from Daniel's life, and now, she was going to pay for it. I wasn't going to let her win. I thought about the day I had confronted her, how she had looked at me with such disdain. The look on her face, That mix of surprise and anger told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't expected me to stand up for myself. She hadn't expected me to fight back. I wasn't the helpless woman she had thought I was. I wasn't the quiet, passive mother-in-law she could push around. I was Daniel's mother, and I wasn't going to let her take everything from me. I spent the next few days in quiet determination, working with my lawyer, gathering evidence, and preparing for the legal battle that was about to unfold. Emily had thought she could manipulate the situation, but she had underestimated me. She had thought that, because I was grieving, I would be too weak to fight back. But I wasn't weak. I was stronger than I had ever been. And now, I had to prepare myself for the next step. I had to face Emily once again, and this time, I wasn't going to back down. I called her, my hand trembling as I dialed the number. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew this conversation was going to change everything. When she answered, her tone was cold, but there was a hint of something else. Fear, maybe? "What do you want?" she asked, her voice sharp. "I want what's rightfully mine, Emily," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm not backing down. You can't manipulate me anymore. I have the will, and I have the evidence. I'm taking you to court, and this time, you're not going to win." There was silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, but she didn't say anything. I continued, my voice unwavering. "I don't care what you've been planning. I don't care how many lies you've told. This is about Daniel's legacy. This is about what he wanted, not what you think you deserve. You've crossed a line, and I'm not going to let you get away with it." Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling just slightly. "You don't know what you're doing, Barbara," she said, her words laced with panic. "You don't understand what's at stake here. I can't let you take this from me." I could hear the fear in her voice, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered everything she had done, everything she had taken from me. No, I wouldn't feel sorry for her. "This isn't about you, Emily," I said, my voice sharp. "This is about Daniel and his wishes. You can't change that. You've tried to push me out, to erase me, but you're not going to succeed. Not this time." I hung up the phone, my heart racing, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of calm. I had taken control. I wasn't going to let Emily ruin Daniel's memory or my place in this family. This was my fight, and I was going to win. I knew there would be more battles ahead. I knew Emily wouldn't give up without a fight, but I was ready. I had to be. For Daniel, for myself, and for the family I had worked so hard to build. I wasn't going to let her tear it all apart. The days following the call felt surreal. I had never expected that standing up for myself would feel like such a monumental task, but with each passing moment, it became clearer to me just how deep Emily's web of deceit had been woven. The shock of her confession, the coldness in her voice, still echoed in my mind as I walked through the halls of the house we had built together, Daniel and I. The weight of it all settled heavily on me. It wasn't just about Daniel's inheritance or the things we had. It was about everything that had been taken from me. The trust, the love, the respect. But there was no time for pity now. I had already come too far to turn back. I couldn't afford to let my emotions overwhelm me. I had to keep my focus. I had to prepare for the battle that was coming. A few days later, the lawyer I had contacted called me with news. Emily had started making moves to transfer assets, likely in an attempt to secure everything for herself before the legal process could catch up to her. The urgency was clear. I wasn't the only one in this game. Emily was already playing her hand, trying to take what wasn't hers. But the more I learned, the more I realized I had the upper hand. Daniel's will was clear in its intentions, and although Emily had tried to manipulate it, she couldn't erase the truth. My son had made sure I was protected. The thought gave me a strange sense of calm. The legal battle ahead was daunting, but I wasn't afraid. For the first time, I felt like I had control. The night before the court hearing, I found myself sitting alone in the living room, staring at the old photographs of Daniel. His smile, his warmth, the way he had always tried to make everyone happy. He had always believed the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. It was painful to think of how Emily had taken advantage of his kindness, his trust. But I couldn't dwell on the past. I had to focus on what was ahead. As the morning of the hearing arrived, I dressed in the same way I always did. Calm, composed, ready to face whatever came my way. I wasn't going to let Emily see me sweat. When I arrived at the courthouse, I could feel the tension in the air. There she was, standing across the room, Her face twisted with the same indifference I had seen in her before. Emily wasn't alone. She had brought her lawyer with her, but I wasn't intimidated. I had a lawyer too, someone who had been on Daniel's side from the beginning, someone I trusted. The courtroom was packed with people, some family friends, some curious onlookers. I didn't look around. I kept my focus on Emily. I could see her trying to project confidence, but it was clear in the way she shifted her stance that she was nervous. She knew what was coming. When the proceedings began, I felt a cold calm wash over me. Emily's lawyer spoke first, presenting their case with confidence, claiming that I was trying to take what wasn't mine. They argued that Daniel had left everything to Emily, and that I was only trying to make trouble. I listened to every word, but I didn't let it faze me. I knew the truth. I knew the law would back me up. When it was my turn, I stood up, my back straight, my voice steady. Your Honor, I began, I am here today because I want to honor my son's memory. Daniel made his wishes clear, and I will not stand by while they are manipulated. The room went quiet, all eyes on me. Emily's lawyer tried to interrupt, but I raised my hand to silence them. I don't need to speak to Emily, I continued, because I know she already knows the truth. This isn't about me. This is about Daniel and what he wanted for his family. I won't let that be taken from me. The judge listened intently, nodding at my words. I could feel the momentum shifting. As the hearing continued, Emily's lawyer couldn't provide the evidence they needed to back up their claims. I had everything in place. The will, the signed documents, everything Daniel had intended for me to have. When it was all over, the judge made his decision. I had won. The courtroom erupted into whispers as I walked out, my heart racing. But this time, it was with relief, not fear. I had reclaimed my place. I had stood up for myself and for Daniel, and I had won. The weeks that followed the court ruling felt like a slow, painful process of rebuilding. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Emily had lost, but more importantly, I had regained my sense of self. The house, once a place of suffocating silence and heartache, began to feel like home again. I could hear the echoes of Daniel's laughter in the walls, his presence still lingering in every corner, reminding me that he had always believed in me, in us. But Emily was not someone who gave up easily. I knew she would find another way to claw her way back into control. And as I walked through the halls, I couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was far from over. One evening, just as I was settling in with a cup of tea, the doorbell rang. I didn't have to guess who it was. Emily stood there, her expression hard, her eyes narrow. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice calm. But there was a bitterness underneath. I didn't invite her in right away. Instead, I stood at the door, my hand still gripping the handle. "What do you want, Emily?" I asked, trying to keep the edge out of my voice, but I couldn't help it. I had already given her so many chances, too many chances, and she had squandered them all. "I just want to make things right," she said, her tone almost pleading. "You won, okay? But this isn't how it should be. We're family." I looked at her, taking in her posture, the way her shoulders were slightly slumped, the way she avoided my gaze. I could see the cracks in her armor, the cracks I had been waiting for. "Family?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "You call what you did family? You've lied, manipulated, and hurt everyone around you. You used Daniel, and now you're trying to use me." Emily flinched at my words, and for a moment, I thought she might break down. But instead, she straightened up, crossing her arms over her chest. "I did what I had to do," she said, her voice defensive. "You don't understand. I couldn't keep living like this, playing the part of the perfect wife. Daniel wasn't the man you think he was." Her words were like a slap, but I stood my ground. I know exactly who Daniel was. He was kind, loving, and loyal. He didn't deserve the way you treated him, and he certainly didn't deserve the way you've treated me since his death. Emily opened her mouth to respond, but I held up my hand, stopping her. "You've had your chance, Emily. You've had your chance to be part of this family, and you blew it. You don't get to come back and try to manipulate me into forgiving you, into giving you another chance. I'm done with you." There was a long, heavy silence between us. I could feel the weight of everything we had just said, the years of bitterness, the years of betrayal, hanging in the air. But this time, I wasn't backing down. I had already lost enough. Emily stood there for a moment longer, her lips trembling as if she wanted to say something else, but she didn't. Slowly, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. I closed the door behind her, feeling the finality of it all. I had fought for my place, for my dignity, and now it was time to move on. The past could no longer hold me. And in that moment, I realized something. Daniel was gone, but I was still here. I still had a future, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. I sat back down, the weight lifting from my shoulders, and took another sip of my tea. It was over. The battle had been won. I had taken control of my life again. It had been a few weeks since Emily had left that night, and the house had finally begun to feel like home again. I had my peace back, the silence no longer feeling like an oppressive weight. For the first time since Daniel's passing, I felt like I could breathe again. The house, which had once felt so empty, now held memories that were mine to cherish, not to mourn. I spent my days going through old photos, things Daniel and I had done together, little moments that no one could take from me. My lawyer had done everything necessary to ensure that Daniel's will was respected, and everything was finally falling into place. But that didn't mean I could forget the truth about Emily. I didn't know what she was doing now, but I was certain that she wasn't just going to let this go. There was something about her, something that told me she wasn't done yet. I couldn't shake that nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, the feeling that she would find another way to come for what wasn't hers. I had to keep my guard up. As time went on, I noticed the changes in myself. I had grown, transformed, in ways I hadn't even realized. I wasn't just the grieving mother anymore. I was someone who had fought, and won, and taken back control of her life. But there were days when the emptiness of losing Daniel crept back in. No matter how much I had fought for my dignity, no matter how much I had regained, I still missed him. I missed his voice, his laugh, the way he would always make me feel like everything was going to be okay. But in the quiet of those moments, I reminded myself that I had done it. I had stood up for myself. I had taken the steps to rebuild my life. And that meant something. A few months passed, and I was beginning to feel more at ease. I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore. Emily had stayed quiet, and for that, I was grateful. But then one morning, as I was having my coffee, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. I debated whether to pick it up, but something in me told me I had to. "Hello," I said, my voice steady. "Is this Barbara Mills?" A voice on the other end asked. "Yes, this is she," I replied, my heart already racing. "I'm calling about an important matter regarding Daniel's estate," the voice continued. My stomach dropped. I tried to keep my composure, but the fear that had been buried deep inside me resurfaced. "What's going on?" I asked, already fearing the worst. "We've come across some discrepancies in the will that were never addressed," the voice explained. "There are additional documents that Emily has recently submitted claiming certain assets. It's become a matter of urgency." My blood ran cold. I had known Emily wouldn't give up, but I hadn't expected her to go this far. I felt the weight of the world settle back on my shoulders. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at my phone in disbelief. The call ended, and I sat in stunned silence. Emily was back, and this time, it was more than just a legal battle. She had found a way to twist things again, to manipulate the situation in her favor. I couldn't believe it. After everything, after the court ruling, after the confrontation, she was still trying to take what wasn't hers. I had fought so hard for what Daniel had left behind, and now Emily was attempting to undo it all. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not this time. This time, I was going to make sure that nothing could take away the respect I had fought for. Nothing could undo the work Daniel and I had put into building a life together. It wasn't just about money. It wasn't about the house or the assets. It was about protecting his memory, protecting my place in this family. I picked up the phone again, dialing my lawyer's number, ready to face whatever came next. Emily had made a mistake, thinking I would back down. I wasn't going to be intimidated. Not by her, not by anyone. This time, I was going to finish this fight once and for all. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. I couldn't allow Emily to get away with this. The more I thought about her latest move, the more I realized just how far she was willing to go to tear apart everything Daniel and I had worked for. The phone call with my lawyer had confirmed it. Emily had submitted new documents that were filled with lies, hoping to sway the court in her favor once again. But I wasn't going to let her. I had already fought too hard, and I wasn't about to let her manipulate the system. I spent the next few days working with my lawyer, going through the documents Emily had submitted, pointing out the inconsistencies, the gaps in her story. It was clear she was trying to pull a fast one, But this time, I was ready. I wasn't going to let her destroy my son's legacy, my place in this family. One evening, as I sat in my living room, I found myself thinking about Daniel. I thought about his smile, the way he would always reassure me that everything would be all right. He had always been my rock, the one I could count on. And now, even though he was gone, I was the one who had to be strong. I had to do this for him. I had to make sure that Daniel's memory and the life we had built together were not going to be swept away by someone like Emily. The next day, I stood in front of the courthouse, my hands trembling slightly as I gripped the paperwork in my hands. I had the truth on my side, the evidence to back up everything Daniel had intended. This was it. I took a deep breath and walked into the building, my mind focused on what lay ahead. As the hearing began, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I could see Emily sitting across the room, her lawyer beside her, looking as confident as ever. But I wasn't intimidated. I had faced worse. I had lost so much already, and this was the last piece. The judge called for the proceedings to begin, and I listened carefully as Emily's lawyer spoke, making his claims, trying to paint me as the villain in this situation. But I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I stood up when it was my turn, my voice calm but firm. "Your Honor," I began, "I am here today to ensure that the wishes of my son, Daniel Mills, are respected. These documents that have been submitted are filled with false claims. They are an attempt to manipulate the truth and rob me of what is rightfully mine." The room went quiet as I spoke. I could feel the eyes of the judge and the others in the room on me. But I didn't flinch. Daniel was clear in his will. He made sure that I would be taken care of, that his legacy would be honored. Emily has tried to twist his words, to manipulate the system, but I won't let that happen. I am Daniel's mother, and I am here to protect his memory. I could see Emily's face change, the confidence slipping away as she realized I wasn't backing down. She looked at her lawyer, but he didn't seem to have any answers for her. The room was still, the tension thick. I continued. Emily may think she can control this, but she's wrong. She may have been able to manipulate Daniel, but she will not manipulate me. I have fought for everything I have, and I will not let her take it away. When I finished speaking, there was a moment of silence. The judge didn't immediately speak, but I could tell he was considering everything carefully. I sat back down, my heart racing, but for the first time in weeks, I felt at peace. I had said my piece. Now, it was in the hands of the court. The judge eventually spoke, his voice firm and final. After reviewing the evidence presented, it is clear that the will is valid. The claims made by Emily Mills are not supported by the evidence, and the original terms of Daniel Mills' estate will stand. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was over. I had won. Emily had lost. She had tried everything she could, but in the end, the truth had prevailed. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a sense of closure, a sense that I had done what Daniel would have wanted me to do. I had protected his legacy, and I had stood up for myself. And as I looked around the courtroom, I realized something else. I had fought this battle alone, but I didn't feel alone anymore. I had my dignity back, my strength, and the knowledge that, no matter what Emily tried, she couldn't take that away from me. The relief from the court's decision was still settling in, but I couldn't help but feel that something was missing. The victory was sweet, but Emily's actions had taken their toll on me. The weight of betrayal was still there, lingering beneath the surface, even though I had regained what was rightfully mine. I thought about how much Daniel had loved her, how he had trusted her with everything, and how she had taken advantage of that. But now, that chapter was over. I had won, and I was determined to move forward. The following weeks were quiet. I went about my days, spending more time with the things that truly mattered, my own well-being, the memories Daniel had left me, and the life that I had to rebuild. I started taking up things I had once enjoyed but had put aside for far too long. Long walks in the park, reading books I had never finished, and even starting to cook again. Slowly, I began to feel like myself again. But there were still moments when I thought of Emily, of how everything had gone so terribly wrong. I wondered if she ever truly regretted what she had done, or if she had simply moved on to the next scheme. It wasn't my problem anymore. As time went on, I realized that the best way to heal was to keep moving forward, to focus on the future instead of dwelling on the past. I didn't need to forgive her. I didn't need to understand her actions. What mattered now was that I had reclaimed my place, my dignity, and Daniel's legacy. One day, as I was sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. It was the peace of knowing that I had done everything in my power to protect what mattered most, and now I could let go. I had done right by Daniel. He would have been proud of me. In the quiet moments, when the world slowed down and everything was still, I could almost hear his voice, telling me that everything was going to be okay. That was enough. I had won. Not just the battle with Emily, but the battle within myself. I had stood up for what was right, for the love I had given, and for the family I had built. And that was something no one, not even Emily, could take away. Months passed, and the weight that had once consumed me gradually lifted. The quiet that had settled over the house after Emily's attempt to claim everything for herself no longer felt oppressive. Instead, it felt like a sign of peace. I had fought for my place, for Daniel's legacy, and I had won. The relief from that victory was now an everyday comfort, and I found myself slowly healing, bit by bit. As time went on, I began to realize that my life had not ended with Daniel's passing. I had spent so many months drowning in grief and betrayal that I hadn't noticed how much of me had been put on hold. It wasn't just Emily I had been battling. It had been my own fears, my own doubts, my own feelings of worthlessness. But now, I could finally see clearly. I had to live for myself. I had spent so much time worrying about what had been taken from me that I forgot about everything I still had. The memories of Daniel, the life we had shared, would never go away. They lived within me, in every room of the house, in every quiet moment I had alone. But they didn't have to hold me captive. I had learned to take back control, and that meant I could move forward. One morning, as I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, I realized that I was no longer angry. I wasn't angry at Emily for what she had done. I wasn't angry at the way she had tried to manipulate me. I wasn't angry at myself for allowing it to happen. All the anger I had carried around had only hurt me, and I had to let it go. Forgiveness didn't mean excusing Emily's actions. It meant letting go of the hold they had on me. I didn't need to carry the weight of that resentment anymore. Emily would never change. That was something I had to accept. But I had. I had changed. And I had done it on my own. I had fought for what was right, and I had won. And in that moment, I knew that I could move forward with my life, with or without Emily's presence in it. The rest of the world could try to knock me down, but I wasn't going to let it. I had Daniel's love in my heart, and that was enough. That was always enough. A few weeks later, I took a trip to visit the old park where Daniel and I used to walk. The day was bright, the sky clear, and as I walked along the path, I remembered how Daniel used to tell me to stop and enjoy the simple things. The sound of the birds, the rustling of the leaves, the way the sun felt warm on our skin. I paused, looking up at the tree we had sat under so many times. I could almost hear his voice, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. I had carried so much hurt, so much pain, but now, in this moment, I could finally let it go. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, and that was what Daniel would have wanted. I was ready for whatever came next, ready to move forward and embrace the future. I had done what I needed to do. The past was behind me, and I was free to live again.